Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Dark Side. I'm your host, Sherry. I have been wanting to talk about this case for a while. It's like something out of an episode of The Twilight Zone. A bizarre disappearance that is still unsolved today, 11 years later. I first came across this story 10 years ago when I was scrolling around on YouTube and I saw this viral video of a seemingly normal guy walk into an airport. He's got his luggage and book bag. He looks like a college student going to catch his flight. He looks around for a moment like he's looking for his gate or the area he's supposed to go to. Next, you see him take off running full sprint out of the airport without any of his belongings. You see him run out into the parking lot. Then a camera catches him in the distance as he runs to a fence and he climbs it. And he runs into a sunflower field and is never seen again. He has earned the nickname the most famous missing man on YouTube. This case was the most popular true crime story from 2015. I'll link the video below at the top of my sources if you want to check it out before we get started. It's less than a minute long. I've watched it at least 20 times, and it makes me so sad every time. It reminds me of the Eliza Lamb video. Do you guys remember in 2013 the video of 21-year-old Eliza Lamb? She was caught on surveillance at Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles. She's hiding from something in the elevator. She's interacting with something that isn't there. She's peeking out of the elevator and pushing buttons, and this was the last video of her because she would be found in the hotel's water tank later by maintenance workers. Her death was ruled an accident. Anyway, the footage of Eliza, just like Lars, went viral because this captured her last moments. This is episode 145, The Case of Lars Mittank. We're going back to a year I miss dearly. What was going on in 2014? The Ebola epidemic became a global crisis. There was the Malaysia airline disappearance. The Winter Olympics were held in Sochi, Russia. There was a cyber attack on Sony Pictures. The attackers released the movies Annie and Fury, which were not supposed to be released yet. Then they released emails from executives and producers. Some were bad-mouthing A-list stars like Angelina Jolie and Adam Sandler. They were super embarrassed these emails got leaked, and they offered an apology to the stars. And in weird news, because that last bit wasn't weird enough, a man left a bar in Mexico City and was pulled over on suspicion of drunk driving. When the cop came to the driver's window, he heard a voice from inside the car yelling, "He's drunk, he's drunk." The cop didn't see anybody else in the car, though. It was the man's pet parrot. The man was given a breathalyzer and spent the night in a jail cell. He was allowed to keep his parrot with him in there. Parrot's like, "I'm not the one driving drunk. What am I doing in here?" Lars Mittank was born February 9th, 1986. He is 28 years old at the time of our story. He was an only child. He lives in Itzehoe, Germany. Lars is a huge football fan. If you're American like me, we call it soccer, but in other countries it's called football. His favorite team is Werder Bremen from Germany. It was his local team, and he devoted a lot of time watching them play and supporting them, wearing their merchandise. He just loved this football team. Lars has a longtime girlfriend and lots of friends. He excelled in school and always got high honors. Super smart kid. At 28 years old, he has a good job as an engineer at a power plant and is enjoying life. Nothing super crazy going on in his life. He's in good physical shape. He doesn't take any daily medications. In fact, he was leery about what he puts in his body. He doesn't do drugs. He isn't an alcoholic. No mental health issues. He was just a regular guy. I wouldn't say he was boring, but you'd never think someone like him would end up being the subject of a large-scale international manhunt. A lot of sources for this case are in German, as they should be. Lars is German, but sometimes details get lost in the translation, so it's hard to exactly make out specific details. It's also important to note before I continue that a lot of sources are shaky at best, since this info has been posted and then reposted with things added or removed and then translated. I really wanted to find some legit stuff from 2014 when this case happened, but it seems like most of the articles I could find were from the 2020s. Every weekend, Lars makes the 100-mile trip to his parents' house. The reason for this is his dad had a stroke recently, and he would come do things around the house for his parents. This has been going on for a while. His mom is like, you need to hang with your friends, go to bars, go enjoy your weekends, but Lars is committed to being at their house every weekend helping out. Lars and 5 of his friends decide they want to organize a holiday out of the country. They want to get out of Germany for a while. Lars was iffy about it at first. He's never been away on a trip like this before, and he doesn't want to leave his parents without him, but his mom convinces him to go. Another source said that Lars only went because his buddies had an extra ticket because someone couldn't go, so they gave it to Lars. They will be staying at an all-inclusive resort on the Black Sea coast of Bulgaria. This beach is super nice. It's 1,200 miles from Hamburg, Germany, where they would catch a plane. I looked up this place, and there's a lot of German tourists that come to this area. They catch a flight out of Hamburg. Lars packs his backpack and duffel bag with everything he would need for the week. He's got clothes, his passport, driver's license, credit cards, and his cell phone. He didn't take his normal super nice cell phone. He bought a cheap burner phone, which is a brilliant idea when traveling internationally. If it gets lost or you get robbed, you don't lose much. On June 30th, 2014, they catch a flight out of Hamburg, Germany, and head to Bulgaria. This resort, called the Golden Sands, is all-inclusive. This trip is giving spring break vibes. His friends say the week started out great for the first few days. They stayed at a 4-star hotel called the Hotel Viva. They clubbed, they partied, ate lots of good food, spent time on the beach. Lars played soccer with the locals and swam in the pool. Just a group of guys having the time of their lives. But near the end of the trip, things took a different turn. The World Cup was taking place, and he and his friends were super excited about that. On July 5th, 2014, this is the day before they will leave Bulgaria and head back to Germany. He and his friends went to the bar where they would have a few drinks and watch the World Cup match on TV, which was Costa Rica versus the Netherlands. Lars is fully decked in his Werner Bremen attire. He's got the jersey, and I read they were hanging out with Bulgarian locals and other tourists. Everyone's super excited about the game. In the bar, there was another group who were decked out in the rival team's apparel. They were fans of Bayern Munich. I probably butchered the pronunciation there. I apologize to any German listeners. So, depending on where you read it or how it comes across after translation, this other group of rival fans didn't want to exchange friendly banter with Lars and his friends. In fact, these guys, who I read were barely out of high school, were picking a fight with Lars's group. Apparently some shouting took place, and I don't think there was any physical fighting, but instead just a lot of arguing, which is odd because it wasn't even those two teams playing on the TV screen that day. Even after this encounter, Lars's group doesn't leave, though. They stuck around till the bar closed. After leaving the bar, they're hungry. Now, Lars' friends say Lars wasn't eating a lot that week. He's acting completely normal and seemed 100% fine, but he stuck with soup and salad and that kind of thing while they're eating steaks and anything else they can get their hands on. It's an all-inclusive trip, so you might as well get your money's worth. I don't read too much into this. It's possible Lars was just being mindful about his food habits, something I need to do more often, especially when I travel. Or maybe he's weird about eating food in a foreign country. There could be a lot of other reasons for why he didn't want to eat copious amounts of food like his friends. It's known that Lars is a vegetarian, so he may not have had a lot of options. Either way, again, I don't read too much into it. But these guys are hungry and leave the bar in search of food. They find a McDonald's that's open. Lars, probably because he's vegetarian and the only option is French fries, says, "You guys go ahead inside, I'll wait out here." The guys eat their food and come back outside, and Lars isn't waiting out there anymore. They figured he must have walked back to the hotel. But when they got to the hotel, Lars wasn't there either. So Lars, being 28 years old, he's an adult, they figured maybe he hooked up with someone or made some new friends and is continuing the party. They have a plane to catch the next day, and they have to check out of the hotel, so hopefully he comes back soon. A few hours later, the guys woke up and Lars was just getting back to the hotel. They asked him what happened. Where'd you disappear to? He said he left the McDonald's and was walking back to the hotel and was jumped by some men. He said they were hired by those teenagers he had an altercation with at the sports bar. His friends don't really believe his story. They allegedly don't believe there was any fight at all, and I'm not sure why they are under that impression, but they are doubting his story and don't press it any further. My question here is, where was Lars for the last few hours? If he left the McDonald's and began walking towards the hotel, which is just a few minutes walk, where has he been the whole time? I don't imagine a fight would last more than 5 or 10 minutes. Lars isn't physically injured too bad. He has a few cuts and bruises, but his main injury is he has a lot of ear pain from where he claims he was hit in the head by one of the men. Lars needs medical attention, but it's getting close to checkout and they have to get to the airport. Lars feels it probably isn't a good idea to fly when he's got ear pain. You know, when you're in the air, your ears will pressurize and do all kinds of weird stuff. He thinks he should get checked out and he would just catch a later flight if he gets cleared to fly. At least one of his friends offered to stay behind with him, but Lars encouraged him to go now and he would be a day or two behind at most. So his friends said goodbye to him and they caught a taxi to the airport, and Lars catches a taxi to a medical center. He gets checked out by a doctor who informs him that he has a perforated eardrum. He tells him he can't fly for at least a few days. If he flew, it may make it worse and cause permanent damage. He tells Lars he could have a surgery to fix it if he wanted, but Lars isn't crazy about having surgery in a foreign country. He tells the doctor he would get it taken care of when he got back to Germany as soon as a few days have passed and he's cleared to fly. I can see why Lars was leery about it. I remember my dad traveled to Thailand on a solo trip and he got food poisoning and had to go to the hospital. Being alone in a country that you don't speak the language and you're sick is terrifying. The doctor does give him a prescription for an antibiotic to help prevent it from getting infected. The prescription is for 500 milligrams cefprozol. It is the only prescription he was given. It's a simple antibiotic, and according to drugs.com, it doesn't have any side effects except in the very rare case it can cause diarrhea, stomach pain, fever, or chills, which is pretty much every prescription's rare side effects. It's an antibiotic, and that's it. Lars gets the prescription filled at a pharmacy. Lars has all of his bags with him, and he can't fly out for at least a few days. His hotel room is gone. All of his friends are gone. He's got this ear injury. He's definitely had better days than this one. He goes out in search of a hotel room. A cab driver took him to a hotel called Color Varna. This is a hotel on the less desirable side of town. It's a cheap room where he can hole up for a few days while his ear heals. So this hotel is vastly different from the 4-star all-inclusive hotel he just spent a week at. According to Google, its rating is 2 stars. Rooms are between $25 and $47 a night. It wasn't that Lars couldn't afford another hotel. It was just all the hotels were booked except this one, which says a lot about it. I'm not knocking Bulgaria. In fact, the crime rate is low there. Every city or town seems to have a bad area, where Lars is currently happens to be it. It was once he got to the hotel that this case takes a very strange turn. Lars phones his mom back in Germany and tells her to cancel his credit card. She tells him the bank is closed, but she will do it in the morning. Why? He says that the lady at the front desk of this hotel made a photocopy of his card and he didn't like it. Something seems wrong. Photocopies of credit cards used to be much more common back in the day, and this hotel seems pretty old school and may not have a modern point-of-sale system, so it's probably just a normal thing for the hotel to make a copy, but Lars still wants his mom to cancel his card. At this point, he's getting paranoid and scared. He thinks people are out to get him. So what he does next is confusing. Around 1 o'clock a.m., Lars is seen on camera at the hotel pacing back and forth down the hallways, and this goes on for hours. Sometimes he'd duck into the elevator and come back out. It's all very bizarre. The camera showed there was no one else around him during this time. If he's scared, why is he out in the open in the hallway and not in his room where there's a lock on the door? Lars doesn't end up staying the night at this hotel. He packs his bags and leaves. He calls his mom again, and he's whispering into the phone. He tells her he's being followed by 4 men, and he's currently in a hiding spot. He tells her, "Don't call me back," because he didn't want his phone to ring and alert the men. She said Lars sounded scared out of his mind and was talking so quietly she could hardly hear him. His mom is all the way in Germany and doesn't know what to do at this point. As a mom, I would be freaking out if my son or daughter called me in this situation, especially since Lars was 1,200 miles away. He texts his mom a little while later and asks her what cefprozil 500 milligram is. She responds that it's a simple antibiotic. So this tells me maybe Lars is 100% safe and is just having some psychotic rare reaction to his antibiotic, which is causing him to hallucinate. He is aware that he may not be in his correct mind, so he wants to ask her what this drug is. It also makes me wonder if maybe the wrong pills got put into his bottle. Pharmacists aren't usually wrong about the medicines they give you, but I wonder if his got mixed up with someone else's. But I read the antibiotic was in a blister pack. 3 of them were found removed from the pack, so they weren't actual pills in a bottle. Anyway, Lars hailed a cab, and the cab driver and female passenger that was in there before Lars got in both said that Lars was acting erratically and his pupils were dilated. Lars asked the cab driver to take him to the airport. He just wants to go home. He calls his mom, who says, "Okay, I booked you a flight home. Just before you get on, go see the airport doctor so he can make sure you're cleared to fly." Whatever fear and paranoia Lars was feeling in the past couple of days should have melted away when he walked into that airport. He's right there, ready to go home. All he has to do is board a plane. Plus, it's an airport. There's thousands of people around. If you're being followed, the airport is a good place to be. Lots of cops, security. It's easy to disappear with so many people around. He is 100% safe, and he could have approached an officer at any point in that airport. He's in the home stretch. Germany is just a couple hours away. His mom would be waiting for him at the airport in Hamburg, and all of this will be over. Lars enters the airport carrying his backpack and his duffel bag. We see him on camera, and he looks like any other tourist. He's looking around for wherever he's supposed to go. He texts his mother that he is at the airport now. He goes to see the airport doctor like his mom had asked him to. Dr. Kostov is the doctor on duty today. Dr. Kostov would say that Lars was acting erratically and paranoid during his visit. He expressed concern over the medication he took. Dr. Kostov had doubts that Lars even filled the antibiotic prescription. He gave his ear an examination and told him he was cleared to fly. Go ahead and get on your plane. According to the Daily Mail, Lars was visibly upset even after getting the news that he was cleared to enter the plane. The airport was under renovations during this time in 2014, and at one point, one of the construction workers walked into the room. Some reports describe this person as a construction worker, while others describe him as an airline employee. This really freaked him out. Lars leaps up and yells that he doesn't want to die here. He leaves his luggage, his cell phone, his passport, all of his personal items in the exam room and begins sprinting through the airport. He runs outside. Many have noticed that in the video footage of Lars running through the airport, the next camera picks him up going outside. Once he's outside, his sprint turns more into a light jog. He runs for a bit, and then he is captured scaling a barbed wire fence. It's grainy since it's from a distance, but you can see him in his bright yellow shirt. The part that gives me chills is after he climbs the fence, he is in a sunflower field. He begins sprinting again. Something else to note is the whole time he is running from inside the airport to the sunflower field, not once does he look back. If someone is chasing me, I'd be looking over my shoulder to see if I've lost them. This grainy footage of Lars climbing the fence and running into the sunflower field was the last time he was seen. It has been 11 years and no sign of him has turned up. Lars' mother doesn't hear from him again. She tried to call his cell phone and didn't get an answer. She calls the police in Bulgaria and explains what happened. They find out from the airport that Lars left all of his stuff and took off running. Lars' mother goes to Bulgaria to start her own investigation and hire a private investigator. They check with local hospitals, homeless shelters, and jails, but no one matches Lars' description. Lars' mother is shown the full surveillance video, parts that haven't been released to the media that we can see. She says that in that footage, Lars runs past two policemen. When he's outside, she says he maneuvered around a police car. She does not feel that Lars was in a psychosis state. She thinks he's moving with purpose and stealth, and he is of sound mind. She would know her son better than anyone else. Let's go through some of the theories for what caused Lars to act the way he did. These are not in any order of probability. These are just various theories that people have come up with over the last 11 years. As you know, when we don't have answers, we're forced to fill in the blanks. This all started when Lars left his friends at McDonald's. Before that, he was fine, aside from this argument or scuffle that took place in the bar with the other soccer fans. He leaves his friends at McDonald's and comes back hours later claiming he had been beaten up by men hired by those high school kids. How did Lars come to the conclusion that these men were hired by them? According to his friends, Lars told them they were either Bulgarian or Russian. Lars is German, so there's already a language barrier. What made him think that they were hired by that group? His friends didn't believe his story. Was there even a fight to begin with? Lars definitely had an injury to his ear, and the doctor who first checked him out confirmed that he had cuts and bruises consistent with being in a fight. Something happened in those few hours that changed Lars. Theory number one is that during those hours he was temporarily missing, he may have gotten a hold of some bad drugs, ones that would put him in psychosis for a few days. Did he buy drugs and then the guys beat him up? That usually doesn't happen. Most just hand over the money and then they take their purchase and leave. And we have to remember that Lars was not a drug user. He was careful about what he put in his body. He was weird about taking an antibiotic. If he won't even eat the local food, I doubt he would consume the local drugs. Theory number two, is it possible that someone forced a large amount of methamphetamine into Lars? It's not likely. People usually don't just waste their drugs. They can make money from them, so why throw it away? As a part two to this theory, there's the drug mule theory. There's the possibility that he could have been told, you're going to carry these drugs for us, which would explain Lars acting so paranoid. Maybe he thought his bag would be searched and he would be thrown in jail. But after Lars disappeared, his bag was searched and there weren't any drugs in it. Plus, there were lots of cops and security guards around. He could have gone to any of them at any time. Theory number three is the antibiotic. There usually aren't any major side effects associated with antibiotics. Is it possible he was the less than 0.1% of humans who had a major reaction to an antibiotic? I can see maybe if he was given a narcotic strength pain medicine, but he wasn't. I also read in loosely translated German that it's totally possible that Lars never filled his prescription for the antibiotic. Did he have an infection that went into his brain and caused him to act the way he did? Theory number four, is it possible that Lars had a pre-existing condition that he didn't know about? This pre-existing condition being schizophrenia or something in that area. It was dormant for 28 years until July 2014. Lars doesn't usually go around getting into fights, so after this supposed fight, it triggered something. It activated this condition. Suddenly, his undiagnosed schizophrenia is triggered, causing him to act the way he did. He had never had any warning signs of this condition before his vacation. Theory number five, is it possible that in addition to a perforated eardrum, he also suffered a concussion? A traumatic brain injury can do a lot of things to your mind, but it usually takes a while. Did it cause him to hallucinate and go into psychosis? It made him believe men were after him and he was going to die. It made him paranoid about the lady at the front desk making a copy of his credit card. It made him panic when the construction worker walked into the room. The cab driver and the passenger both said Lars had dilated pupils, which is a symptom of a concussion. Theory number 6, lack of sleep. Did the fact that he had been awake for over 24 hours have something to do with it? I don't think it is, but it's been brought up. Theory number 7, what if Lars wasn't acting irrationally at all? What if there really were men out to get him? He said it was some men hired by those soccer fans at the bar that jumped him, and now they are after him. He told his mom on the phone he had to be quiet or else they would hear him. He had left that shady hotel and was hiding somewhere where they couldn't see him. There's a few holes with this theory that people were following him. First, I find it hard to believe that these high school kids on vacation were able to find and pay a hitman. Also, why? They had a scuffle at the bar over a soccer team. That hardly warrants murdering someone. In the footage of Lars at the shady hotel, he was pacing the halls for hours. No one else was in the frame. And when he takes off running out of the airport, he never looks back. All the video footage shows the folks around him seem like normal travelers to us, but to Lars they weren't. He saw them as a threat. A lot of people bring up that when Lars is walking in, there's a man in a blue shirt walking parallel to him. Could that have been one of the people following him? Also, I find it odd that a construction worker or airline employee walked into an exam room while a patient was in there. That would likely violate some kind of privacy law. What was so important that it couldn't wait until after the exam was over? When he is first seen running out of the airport, there is a person on the left who turns towards him. From the surface, to me, it looks like an older woman, maybe in her 70s, who is just curious why this young man is full sprinting out of there. But some believe this is not an old woman at all and maybe a younger man, but the person never chased after him. Despite the worldwide attention this case has received thanks to the surveillance footage, we are no closer to finding Lars today in 2025 than we were in July 2014. It's like he simply vanished. So now we'll discuss the theories that people have come up with for what happened to Lars after he climbed that fence. We know he ran into a sunflower field. On the other side of that sunflower field is the A2 highway. If he flagged down a car and got a ride somewhere, why didn't the commuter tell anyone, hey, I picked that guy up and dropped him off here? There isn't a single person in Bulgaria who hasn't heard of Lars Mittank. Did he eventually stop running when he found a little house or cabin since there was woods nearby? Did he hole up in there? Did he do what Joshua Maddox did from our episode 92? Did he hide in the chimney and get stuck and is currently still in the chimney today? Some people experiencing psychosis will try to burrow themselves in brush to hide from something. That was one of the theories in the Brandon Lawson case. This next one's a little out there. There's a theory that he ran towards the airport runway. While running, he saw an airplane that was taking off and he grabbed onto something and held onto it for as long as he could. Eventually, he fell off and his body could be anywhere at that point, but his body has never been found. Maybe his remains will be found years from now. The next theory is human trafficking. Was Lars picked up and forced into labor or prostitution? Someone saw Lars as this young, good-looking guy who's in good shape. Could he be forced into hard labor? Human trafficking victims are very hard to locate. Once they have you, it's almost impossible to get out of it. You can go back and listen to our terrifying episode 79, where our case subject was a possible human trafficking victim and the lengths her family went to find her. This human trafficking theory kind of ties into the theory that Lars is being held captive somewhere. That's my biggest fear when a person goes missing. The person is being held in someone's basement dungeon somewhere and being subjected to all kinds of stuff for years. At that point, I would just pray that I would be killed rather than be tortured. I don't believe this is what happened to Lars. Bulgaria isn't really known for human trafficking. It's lower on the list compared to other countries. I read some of the reviews for the Hotel Color Varna that Lars stayed at for a few hours. Some of the reviews were downright creepy. A lot of people complained that someone tried to open their door when they were staying there. The owner of the hotel makes valiant efforts to respond to each one of these complaints. One guy said he was attacked by a group of men while staying there. Another said he heard a lot of whispering outside his door, and when he opened it, no one was there. The whole thing is very creepy. A few of the reviews said they had a very bad experience at this hotel, and no wonder Lars was acting the way he did, and he must have been scared out of his mind. The owner responded to each one. He said Lars didn't stay a full night at the hotel, and he thinks of him often and hopes he is someday found. Did Lars run as far as he could trying to escape whatever he was escaping and eventually collapse and die? The problem, once again, is that his body has never been found. Statistics show that after 10 years, only 1% of all missing person cases are solved. There's been lots of tips and supposed sightings of Lars through the years. One that seemed credible came from a German truck driver in 2019, 5 years after Lars' disappearance. He was watching a program about Lars on TV, and he swears on his life that he picked him up. He said he picked up a homeless guy who was hitchhiking and drove him for a bit. He later watched this program and said it had to be him. He looked exactly like him. The guy was dropped off somewhere near Berlin, Germany. Nothing else came out of this tip, but it did give the family hope that Lars is still out there and he's homeless and maybe doesn't know who he is. Maybe he has lost his memory. In 2017, a man in Brazil was spotted by a police officer. He was shuffling around in his bare feet outside. He was very dirty and unkempt. His photo was circulated, and many people thought this was Lars Mittank. They looked to be about the same age, and the guy looked remarkably like Lars. He just had longer hair and a beard. He didn't have a passport or any ID. He didn't even know who he was or where he came from. He ended up not being Lars, but he was another missing person. His name was Anton Pilipa. He is Canadian. He is 39 years old and disappeared back in 2012. He was a humanitarian worker, but suffered from schizophrenia and hadn't had his medication in years. He managed to trek across 2 continents by foot and ended up in Brazil. He survived living off of trash and berries found in the woods. This story gave a lot of hope to people whose loved ones are missing. This guy was found after 5 years with 0 clues about his disappearance. He was reunited with his family, who were shocked to learn that he was found. I can only hope the same thing can happen to Lars one day. It's amazing how each one of us can pinpoint a moment in our lives that if we had just done something differently, our lives would be totally different. For Lars, if only he told the guys, "Nah, I don't want to go on a trip with you," or if he would have stayed at McDonald's with his friends. He could have went inside and ate French fries and laughed about that group giving them problems at the bar. Lars likely would have never went missing. If only he would have gotten on the airplane after the airport doctor gave him the all clear to fly. Instead, he ran out of the airport. This case reminds me so much of Terrence Woods. Terrence Woods disappeared in October 2018. He was working as a production assistant for a shoot for the Discovery Channel. They were filming in rural Montana. The film crew said he was acting erratically all morning and then suddenly took off running into the woods and has never been seen again. I hope someone finds Lars and he learns that he was once a power plant engineer with a great family. He has a lot of people looking for him, and I hope his parents are reunited with him someday. If Lars is alive today in 2025, he just turned 39 years old. Lars' mother's theory, according to multiple sources, is that he had an adverse reaction to the antibiotic he was given. It caused him to go into psychosis, and now his whereabouts are unknown. That's it for this week, and I'll see you all again soon. Take care, and much love to you all.